My name is Brooke Anderson and I'm 34 years old. I never thought that one day my 16-year-old daughter would be the one to save me from my own family. It was a warm July evening, and we were celebrating my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. Everything looked perfect. The country club was glowing with golden lights, champagne was flowing, and everyone was smiling. Felt like a happy family moment. But during dinner, I noticed my daughter Madison getting more and more uneasy. Her eyes kept bouncing between my parents and my ex-husband. When they brought out the big celebration cake, Madison suddenly grabbed my hand. She whispered, "Mom, we need to leave. Right now." I stared at her, confused. "Why?" I asked. She looked determined and said, "I'll tell you in the car." If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to support me. I'd also love to know where you're watching from. Leave your city in the comments while I tell you how my daughter's instincts uncovered a betrayal I never saw coming. My relationship with my parents, Richard and Diana Ullis, had always been difficult. I grew up in a wealthy home in New England, but love there was something you had to earn. My father built a successful real estate company from scratch, and my mother guarded our family's image like a soldier. Praise only came with achievements, and disappointments were never forgotten. I thought I finally made them proud when I married Nathan Pearson, my dad's business partner's son. From the beginning, my parents adored Nathan. He had a degree, big goals, and knew how to shine at fancy events. For 10 years, I believed we had a strong marriage, even when Nathan started acting cold and controlling. Then, a year ago, I found out he was cheating on me with his 25-year-old assistant, Kayla. My whole world collapsed. The divorce was brutal. I had to fight for financial stability while raising our 2 kids, smart and stubborn 16-year-old Madison, and kind, sensitive 8-year-old Ethan. We moved out of our big colonial-style house into a small 3-bedroom apartment. I started doing freelance design jobs and worked part-time at an art gallery. I was also learning how to share custody of the kids. Surprisingly, my parents seemed supportive during the divorce. They called more often, sent gifts to the kids, and invited us to Sunday dinners. I felt grateful and thought they had chosen me over appearances. But Madison stayed wary. "They look at you differently now, Mom," she told me one evening. "Like you're a project they need to fix." I brushed it off as teenage drama. "They're just trying to help," I told her. "That's how they show love." Madison just shrugged, but the tension between her and my parents kept growing. She started skipping dinners more often, saying she had homework or plans with friends. And when she did come, she was polite but distant, watching everything carefully instead of joining in. Ethan, on the other hand, was thriving under all the attention from his grandparents. They took him fishing, to baseball games, and gave him expensive gifts, things I simply couldn't afford. My dad kept saying Ethan would one day go to the same university he went to. "The Ullis legacy lives on," he'd say, messing up Ethan's hair, carefully avoiding my eyes. When my parents announced their big 40th wedding anniversary party, I saw it as a chance to reconnect. They planned a fancy celebration at the Oak Ridge Country Club. Over 100 guests were invited. Relatives, friends, business partners. Everyone was coming to celebrate their long marriage. I spent weeks getting ready. I didn't have money for a new dress, so I remade an old one I had from before the divorce. I helped Mom with the guest list and menu, and I created a photo album of their life together. 40 years of memories, carefully chosen. Madison watched all my hard work with concern. "Why are you trying so hard, Mom?" she asked. "They've never done this much for you." I smiled and told her, "Because family means supporting each other. We need to stick together." And I believed it. The day of the party was sunny and perfect. I spent hours helping Madison get ready, convincing her to wear the emerald dress her grandmother bought her. "Just for a few hours," I promised. "Grandma will be happy." When we walked into the club, I gasped. The place looked magical. White roses and lilies decorated every table. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above the dance floor, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. My parents greeted guests at the entrance. Dad wore a sharp tuxedo, and Mom looked like a queen in her silver-beaded gown. "Brooke, darling." Mom kissed both my cheeks. "You look comfortable. And Madison, that dress really brings out your eyes." My dad barely looked at me. He quickly scooped up Ethan. "There's my boy. I saved a special seat for you at the head table." That was the first moment I felt uneasy. But I pushed it aside. The room filled quickly with people. Some I knew, others I didn't. Distant relatives, business associates, club friends. I moved around, playing the part of the perfect daughter, smiling as people gave their sympathy about the divorce. "Yes, it was tough, but we're managing. The kids are strong," I kept repeating. "No, I'm not seeing anyone." Everything was going smoothly, until I saw them walk in. Nathan, glowing in an expensive suit, and Kayla on his arm, her long blonde hair shining, wearing a designer dress I could only dream of. My stomach twisted. "Did you know they were coming?" I whispered to my sister-in-law, Rachel. She looked uncomfortable. "I thought you knew. Your mom invited them herself." Before I could even react, my parents were already hugging Nathan and Kayla like old friends. Dad clapped my ex-husband on the back like a favorite son, and Mom was showering Kayla with compliments. Froze. I stood there, watching my parents warmly greet the man who betrayed me, and the woman he cheated with. When I locked eyes with my mom, she just shrugged. "The past is in the past, dear. Nathan is still family." Of course we had to invite him to such an important event. I quietly moved to the bar and poured myself a glass of wine. Madison stood nearby, eyes narrowed, typing fast on her phone. I should have paid attention, noticed who she was texting and why. I should have seen the warning signs earlier. But instead, I took another sip of wine and told myself to just survive the evening with grace. The ballroom buzzed with chatter and laughter as the party hit full swing. Crystal glasses clinked, waiters moved smoothly through the crowd with trays of appetizers, and the photographer snapped carefully staged, happy moments. I didn't stop smiling, even though deep inside, I felt sick watching Nathan and Kayla stroll around the room like they belonged, accepting congratulations on their recent engagement. "How are you holding up?" my cousin Melissa whispered in my ear, squeezing my hand. I would have poured that wine right in her face. "I'm trying to stay mature. For the kids," I said, scanning the room for Madison and Ethan. Ethan was easy to spot. He stood proudly beside my father, helping him greet important guests. My dad's hand rested on Ethan's shoulder as he introduced him as the future leader of the Ullis family business. Madison was harder to find. I finally spotted her in a far corner of the room, deep in conversation with my mom's sister, Aunt Linda. Madison stood tall, her face serious, while Linda kept glancing around nervously. As soon as they saw me walking over, they stopped talking. "Everything okay?" asked casually. "Just chatting with my niece," Linda said with forced cheer. "She's so observant now." Madison's eyes briefly met mine. "We were talking about family history," she said evenly. I didn't get a chance to ask more. A glass clinked loudly, and all heads turned. My dad was standing in the middle of the room, holding up a champagne flute, as always, loving the spotlight. "Diana and I are touched by your presence," he said, raising his glass to my mother. 40 years ago, I made the best business decision of my life." A polite chuckle ran through the crowd. "Marriage is about building something solid together," he continued. "It takes tough choices and sacrifices to protect the family's future." He glanced at Nathan, then Ethan, and finally me, with a look I couldn't quite read. "Tonight is not just about the past. We're strengthening the future. Family tradition. Smart investments." Everyone raised their glasses, though I noticed a few puzzled looks at the strange toast. As dinner was served, I tried to enjoy the food, but my anxiety kept growing. Madison barely touched her plate, checking her phone under the table. Ethan, meanwhile, sat between my father and Nathan, chatting with them excitedly. But whenever I got near, their voices would go quiet. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway, nearly bumping into Aunt Linda. "Oh, Brooke," she flinched. I was just looking for you. Everything's fine. She hesitated, then whispered. I'm worried. I overheard a few things. Your father and Nathan were talking about some financial deals. Weird ones. What kind of deals? Asked. Asterisk. Something about transferring property to avoid risk. I heard your name. And words like irresponsible and unpredictable. She squeezed my hand. I know Richard has always been strict, but this feels different. Just be careful. Before I could ask more, my mother appeared. There you are, Linda. The photographer needs the sisters for a photo. Linda gave me an apologetic look and left. My stomach tightened with unease. When I got back to the table, Madison was gone. Ethan was now sitting on Nathan's lap, laughing while looking at something on his phone. My mom stood nearby, smiling with pride, the kind of pride I rarely saw from her. Where's Madison? I asked, looking around. Oh, that girl, sighed my mom. She's been moody lately. Said she needed some air and stepped out to the terrace. I found Madison outside, standing with her back to the party, talking seriously on the phone. Yes, that's exactly what the document said. I just need to know if it's even legal. When she noticed me, she quickly ended the call. Mom, how's the party? She asked. Who were you talking to? Just a friend, she said, slipping her phone away. Did you notice how much time Grandpa's been spending with Nathan? Probably business stuff, I said, though I wasn't sure. Madison looked me in the eye. Mom, have you ever wondered why Grandpa keeps all the family documents in his office? Contracts, trust papers. What are you talking about? How would you even know what's in there? She hesitated. Last time we were here, I needed a quiet place to study. Grandma sent me to his office while he was golfing. Her expression was firm. There were papers with your name and Nathan's on them. Some had red sticky notes and notes about transferring ownership and guardianship. A chill went through me, even though it was a warm summer evening. Madison, those are private documents. You shouldn't be looking at things that aren't yours, even if they involve us. She sighed, frustrated. Why are you more worried about me seeing the papers than about what they mean? I didn't get a chance to answer. The servers came out onto the terrace carrying the cake. Madison gave me a long, steady look. Just watch how they act around Nathan. Watch closely. For the next hour I did exactly that. I started watching everything very, very closely. My dad kept his hand on Nathan's shoulder as he introduced him to important guests. My mom was showing Kayla the family jewelry, pieces she once promised to give me. Nathan looked completely at home with my parents, like the divorce had never even happened. But what bothered me most was the way they posed for group photos. They kept placing Ethan between them, my dad, Nathan, and my son, while I was pushed to the side, almost out of frame. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This was their idea of a perfect family. Then the slideshow began, shown on a big screen. The title read, 40 Years of Love and Legacy. As the photos flipped through, I noticed something strange. My brother Brian and his wife showed up in almost every photo. Nathan appeared in all the recent family pictures. Ethan was front and center in most of them. But me, I was barely there. And Madison, only in 2 group shots, as if they were slowly erasing us from the family history, while making Nathan a bigger part of it. I looked over at Madison. She was already watching me, studying my reaction. I realized she had noticed this long before I did. After the applause, my dad grabbed the mic again. Before we cut the cake, he said, we have an important announcement. He waved Nathan and Ethan over to stand beside him. Passing down the family legacy has always been our top priority, he said. Tonight, we take steps to ensure the Wallace traditions and property stay in trusted hands for generations to come. Madison suddenly squeezed my hand. Harder than I ever expected. Could barely breathe. In the next few weeks, we'll finalize the paperwork, Dad continued, to make sure our legacy is protected by those who can preserve it. He glanced at me for just a second. There was something in his eyes. Maybe guilt, pity, Sometimes real love means making hard choices, for people who may not understand what's best for them. The room went quiet. A few people whispered to each other. Madison leaned close and whispered, "I need to check something." And before I could stop her, she was gone. For the next 20 minutes, I sat at the table, frozen, nodding at guests and pretending to listen while panic built up inside me. Madison finally came back. She was pale and her face looked serious, more than ever before. She leaned down, barely moving her lips. "Mom, we need to leave. Right now." "We can't just go," I whispered back, looking around. "It's your grandparents' anniversary. Ethan's having fun." Madison's eyes burned with urgency. "Mom, please. Trust me. We need to go." "What happened? Are you sick?" "I'll explain everything. Just not here." She glanced quickly at Gerald, my father's business partner, who was watching us from across the room. "Please, Mom. Just this once, don't ask. Just trust me." Her voice was full of desperation. Pause. Madison had always been sharp, intuitive, but never dramatic. If she was this sure, I had to believe her. "Okay," I said. "Let me say goodbye and get Ethan." "Only if you're quick," she said. "And don't let Grandpa talk you into staying." I went to find Ethan, who was playing with his cousins. But halfway there, Mom stepped in front of me. "Leaving already?" she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her lipstick was perfect, her expression unreadable. "The best part of the night is just getting started." "Madison's not feeling well," I lied. "We should take her home," I said. "Let your brother take her," Mom answered. "Brian will come by. You stay here with Ethan. There's going to be important news soon." Her insistence made me feel cold inside. "What kind of news?" I asked. "Oh, just something family-related. Don't worry, your father will handle it." She patted my hand like I was a child. "That's exactly what worries me," I muttered as I walked toward my son, who was complaining loudly. "But Grandpa said he has a surprise for me." Ethan whined. "We'll come back another time for the surprise," I promised, avoiding my father's eyes from across the room. Suddenly, Naughton stepped in front of us, blocking the way. "Leaving so soon, Brooke? The night's just getting started." His familiar cologne and cold smile made me feel uneasy. "Your father wanted to talk about Ethan's education fund," he added. "Another time," I replied sharply. I noticed how they were only talking about Ethan, never about Madison. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he said quietly. "Your parents just want to make sure Ethan has a good future. You're having money problems, right?" His eyes went up and down, judging my altered dress. Madison suddenly stepped in front of me, blocking him. "We're leaving. Ethan, take Mom's hand." We hurried to the door. Just as we passed, I heard bits of conversation from my dad's lawyers. "The transfer of rights will be simple. Once guardianship changes, the Wallace legacy stays in the family. Just not through the daughter. Naughton's name will go into the trust by the end of the month." My father caught up with us near the exit. His face wore a perfect mix of concern and disappointment. "Brooke, this isn't right. We have guests. There are big announcements tonight." "Sorry, Dad. Madison's not feeling well." He barely looked at her. "She can stay with the staff. You and Ethan should be part of the family portion of the evening." The way he said family portion and left Madison out hit me hard. For the first time in my life, I didn't do what he said. "Whatever it is, we'll talk another time. We're leaving." His expression turned cold. "This is the kind of irresponsibility we're worried about. Naughton would never put personal feelings above the family." "Except he's not even in the family anymore," I snapped. "But somehow he's still your favorite." My father leaned in so Ethan wouldn't hear. "We're just protecting the family's assets from your emotional decisions. If you had agreed to our terms, this would have been easy." "What terms?" I demanded. But he straightened up as a guest approached. "We'll talk when you're thinking more clearly. Naughton and I have plans that will help everyone, especially Ethan." Madison tugged my sleeve. Mom, please. Now. I looked into her eyes. I saw fear and something stronger, determination. Whatever she had found out, it truly scared her. And that was enough for me. I nodded without saying a word, turned away from my father, and led the kids out the front door into the warm summer night. As we walked toward the car, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Something was very wrong with my family, and I was finally ready to face it. Inside my old Honda Accord, everything was quiet, like in a confessional. As we drove away from the club's round parking lot, the only sound came from Ethan sighing in the back seat, playing with his party souvenir. Madison sat next to me, hands clasped tightly in her lap, staring straight ahead into the dark road. Are you going to tell me what's going on? I finally asked, lowering my voice so I wouldn't wake Ethan. Madison looked back at her brother. Not yet. He doesn't need to hear this. I nodded, trusting her judgment. We drove in tense silence for about 15 minutes, until Ethan's head slowly tilted. He had fallen asleep after the excitement of the party. Once I heard his soft breathing from the back seat, Madison sat up straight. Pull over somewhere. I need to show you something on my phone. I turned into an empty supermarket parking lot, shut off the engine, and in the dim streetlight, I saw her unlock her phone. I've had a feeling something was wrong, she whispered. Because of the way Grandpa and Grandma talk about you when you're not around. And how they go out of their way to get close to Ethan but push me away. I thought maybe I was imagining it, until today. She opened a message thread. First, I need to tell you who I've been talking to. It's Aunt Samantha. The name hit me like a punch. Samantha Walsh. My father's younger sister. She'd been cut off from the family 15 years ago after a huge fight over inheritance. Dad always said she was greedy and unstable. I hadn't spoken to her in years. How did you even find her? Yes. Instagram. 3 months ago. I messaged her because everything Grandpa's doing to you reminded me of what she said happened to her. She handed me the phone and I saw a long chat thread. Samantha had been warning her that Grandpa and Grandma might start manipulating the family again. She told Madison to watch for signs, like suddenly being interested in guardianship, money, or property. I scrolled through the messages. My chest tightened more with each word. Madison's replies showed growing fear. That's why I've been paying close attention. But today, it all became real, Madison said, her voice trembling. When I left the dinner table, I went into Grandpa's office at the club. He always keeps a suitcase full of papers there. I overheard him and Nathan talking about documents, and I wanted to know what they were planning. Madison, you shouldn't go through people's private papers, I started to say, even though I secretly felt proud of her bravery. Mama, they're trying to take everything from you. Tears filled her eyes. I was heading to the bathroom and heard Grandpa and Nathan laughing, saying you'd never see it coming. That's when I decided to check the suitcase. She opened her photo gallery. I took pictures of everything I found. What I saw on the screen made my blood run cold. Legal documents with my name, Nathan's name, and my parents' signatures. Papers about transferring my childhood home. The Victorian house they'd always promised would be mine as their only daughter. A document about changing Ethan's custody, with a note written by my father. Proper upbringing in family tradition. There's more, Madison said quietly. When I got back to the party, I turned on the voice recorder on my phone and recorded their conversation. She hit play. My father's voice came through clearly. Nathan understands how to preserve the Wallace family name. Brooke has always been too emotional and independent. The divorce finally gives us the chance to make things right. Nathan's voice. Thank you for trusting me, Richard. If the house goes to me as Ethan's guardian, the family legacy and property will stay under control. Brooke will just sell it for one of her creative whims. Then my mother joined in. We've always worried about her judgment. Remember that terrible teacher she dated in college? Or when she suddenly decided to become a photographer? Thank God you stayed with us, Nathan, even after the divorce. You've always been like a son to us." Tears filled my eyes as I listened. Their plan was clear: to contest the divorce, transfer property to Nathan, take away my inheritance and even my child, using my financial instability. And they were completely ignoring Madison, calling her too much like me, too curious and inconvenient. "They're working on Ethan too," Madison added. "Telling him that if he lives with Dad, he'll go to better schools, get more opportunities. That you're the one holding him back." The betrayal hit so hard I could barely breathe. My own parents, along with my ex-husband, were planning to steal my son and my house. And they were doing it all during a family celebration, pretending everything was fine. "I couldn't let you stay when I realized they were about to announce it tonight," Madison explained. "Aunt Samantha told me Grandpa did the same thing to her once. He made it all public at an event so the person couldn't fight back without looking crazy." I took my daughter's hand, barely holding back tears. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing what I didn't. For being brave and getting us out." She squeezed my hand. "I was scared you wouldn't believe me. You always try to defend them." "Not anymore," I said. With shaking hands I started the car. "Let's go home. We'll figure out what to do next." As we drove back to our small apartment, it hit me. My daughter had saved me from my blind loyalty. And tomorrow a battle would begin, one I was never prepared for. That night I couldn't sleep. After putting Ethan to bed, Madison and I sat at the kitchen table for hours, going through all the evidence she had collected and trying to find more. Around midnight, she fell asleep on the couch, still holding her phone. I covered her with a blanket, amazed at how strong and grown-up she was. Alone, I opened my laptop and started my own investigation. First, I logged into an old email account that Nathan and I had once shared. He never changed the password, probably thought I'd forgotten it. In the drafts folder, where he kept notes, I found messages discussing meetings with my father. "Richard agrees. Transfer of property should be done before the school year starts. Then change custody arrangements. Brooke is busy with her gallery. She likely won't notice the lawyer's notice." Another draft, dated just 3 days before the party. "The anniversary is the perfect moment to announce everything. Diana's worried Brooke will resist, but Richard believes family pressure will force her to agree." My hands were shaking. In the sent folder I found an email to our family lawyer. Nathan had asked about changing custody and child support, citing new income and residence changes. At 2 a.m., sleepless and determined, I searched for Samantha Yuli's on her website. For the first time in 15 years. I found her contact info and, without hesitation, sent a message. "Samantha, it's Brooke. Madison showed me everything. I need to talk about Dad." To my surprise, the reply came almost instantly. "I've waited years for your call. Are you safe to talk?" We talked for over an hour. Samantha told me her story. How Dad took away her inheritance from our grandparents. How he announced new contracts and power of attorney documents at a family event, one she hadn't even seen before. How he made her look unstable and greedy when she tried to protest. "It's all repeating," she said, her voice cracking. "To Dad, family is just business. And kids. If you don't fit his plan or pick the right path, you're a problem to eliminate. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Yes. I tried, Brooke. But back then you adored him. You were marrying Nathan, his golden boy. You didn't want to hear it. I felt ashamed of my past self. I'm sorry. I should have listened. What matters is that you're listening now," she said. "And that you have Madison. That girl is something else. Brave. Smart." When she wrote to me, I saw a version of myself, before your dad broke me. Before we hung up, Samantha gave me some advice. And her lawyer's contact info. Document everything. Don't sign anything. Don't meet with them alone. At sunrise, I called my brother Brian. He'd always kept his distance from family drama. To my surprise, he confirmed nearly everything Madison and Samantha had told me. "I overheard Dad and Nathan discussing the property transfer," he admitted reluctantly. Dad told me it was all just for taxes, that everything would be fine. Even for me. Will I get anything too? I asked bitterly. He didn't answer. Why, Brian? Why are they doing this? Dad never forgave you for choosing art over the family business, he sighed. And when you started arguing with Nathan about money during the divorce to him, you became a threat to the family wealth. Nathan wants everything to stay in the bloodline through Eaton. And Madison. She's too much like you, too smart, too independent. So you learned to stay quiet and go along with it. I finished for him sadly. I'm sorry, Brooke. I should have warned you. The next morning, after feeding Eaton and sending him to the neighbors, I made the call I had been dreading. Madison sat beside me for support. I dialed my parents. Mom picked up first. Her voice was cold and perfect. Brooke, your behavior yesterday was outrageous. Your father is very upset. Put Dad on. I want to speak to both of you. A moment later, Dad's commanding voice came on. I hope you're calling to apologize for the scene you made. Actually, I want to talk about the documents you and Nathan are preparing. The property transfer, the new custody agreements, and the power of attorney. There was a pause. Told me everything I needed to know. That's family business, Dad finally said, his voice harder. We wouldn't have involved you if you had behaved better in your personal life. This is about me directly. It involves my children and my inheritance. Inheritance is a privilege, not a right, Mom cut in. Everything we have is thanks to your father, and only he decides who gets what. So you plan to give everything to my ex-husband? Or help him take my son from me? Don't be dramatic, Dad snapped. We're just protecting the assets and managing them properly. You've been unpredictable since the divorce. You mean because I didn't let Nathan handle my money? Or because I didn't quit my job to play the perfect wife? We've always supported your little gallery hobby, Mom said with a cold smile. Nathan understands how to manage capital, Dad added. He can give Eaton a solid future. And Madison, what have you planned for her? There was a long silence. Madison is too stubborn, Mom finally said. Just like Samantha. Not interested in family traditions. The way they dismissed my daughter lit a fire inside me. Listen carefully, I said, trying to stay calm. I know all about your plans. I have copies of the documents, recordings of your conversations with Nathan, and witnesses to how you pressured Eaton. You're hysterical, Dad interrupted. That's exactly why we had to take action. Your emotional instability. You did the same thing to Aunt Samantha, I cut in. There was a shocked silence. I already spoke to Samantha and Brian. I know this isn't the first time you've disinherited people you didn't like, or forced them to agree to your terms. You contacted Samantha. Mom's voice rose with anger. She's unstable, ungrateful. Enough, I said firmly. I'm meeting a lawyer tomorrow. From now on, everything goes through him. Tell Nathan the same. You're making a mistake, Dad warned. We were trying to help you. No, Dad. You were just trying to control me like you always have. But that ends now. I hung up and looked at Madison. Her eyes were full of fear and pride. What happens now? She asked quietly. I hugged my daughter, drawing strength from her. Now we were going to fight, not just for money but for our freedom from their control. In that moment, I felt it clearly. Years of chasing my parents' approval were gone. What mattered now was protecting my children and my dignity. The next morning I called Jennifer Reeves, the lawyer Samantha had recommended. Unlike the lawyers who handled my divorce, longtime family friends, Jennifer had no connection to the Ulysses. Her office was modest but professional, and she had a direct, no-nonsense attitude. No fear of big family names. Your case isn't unique, she said after reviewing the evidence Madison and I had gathered. Rich family heads often use trusts and property to control others. But the good news is, your daughter brought us strong proof. What about the threats about custody? I asked, unable to hide my biggest fear. Nathan has more money. And my parents are backing him. Money matters, Jennifer admitted. But it's not everything. The court looks at what's best for the children, and the relationships already in place. She pointed to printed transcripts, conversations Madison had recorded. They openly talked about using Eaton like a bargaining chip. That helps us. Jennifer quickly built a strategy. Send legal notices to block any property deals without my consent. File an official complaint about pressure to change custody for financial gain. We'll also need to work with Eaton, she added gently. From what you've said, he's been slowly turned against you with gifts and promises. Madison, who insisted on being at the meeting, spoke up. Eaton's confused. He loves Mom, but Grandpa tells him he'll have his own room and a better school if he stays with Dad. Kids feel more than we think, but they're easy to influence, Jennifer nodded. Family therapy might help him understand what's really going on. After we secured legal protection, the next hard step was a personal one. A talk with Nathan. Following Jennifer's advice, I chose a neutral cafe and placed my phone on the table so it was clear the conversation was being recorded. That's not necessary, Nathan said with a grimace, eyeing the phone. We could have just talked like family. Family issues become legal issues, I said calmly, when people go behind my back. At first, Nathan denied everything, saying I misunderstood. But once I mentioned the specific documents and recordings, his tone changed. Your parents pulled me into this, he said, lowering his voice. They were worried about your state after the divorce, about the kids' stability. Their solution was, give you my house, but transfer custody of Eaton to me. I didn't even try to hide my sarcasm. Nathan looked uncomfortable. Richard thinks family assets should stay with people who know how to protect them, like the house, the trust, the inheritance. It should all stay in the family. So, I'm cut out of the inheritance because I got divorced? Yes. He didn't argue. Just be smart, Brooke. Your dad wants Eaton to have a secure future. All you have to do is accept this new arrangement. And what about Madison? Ask directly. He hesitated. She's different, too independent. Richard says she's too much like you. Our talk ended when Nathan realized I wasn't giving in. As he stood to leave, he warned me. Your parents have so many resources and connections. You won't win. Don't start a war you can't finish. In the past, his words would have scared me. But not now. Not with Madison by my side. I was ready to protect my kids and myself to the very end. The next week began a quiet legal battle and a journey to heal our family. Jennifer filed the lawsuits, froze all property deals, and secured my rights as a parent. I signed the kids up for family therapy, especially for Eaton, to help him understand the truth. One day during a session, my son admitted, Grandpa says Dad needs me more than you. He says I'm his heir. You're my son first, I replied gently. You don't have to choose sides or deal with grown-up problems. You are loved by all of us. During that time, Madison truly blossomed. She didn't hide anymore or try to protect me quietly. She became my real teammate. She kept in touch with Samantha, who gave her helpful advice on how not to fall into the same old traps. The biggest surprise was Samantha's support. After 15 years apart, we started rebuilding our relationship. We talked late at night, visited each other on weekends with the kids. Samantha had started her own interior design business in Colorado, married a professor, and raised 2 amazing kids. Dad always uses the same pattern, she told me on her first visit. He picks someone in the family who asks too many questions. Then he turns them into the problem, calls them unstable, cuts them off. And while everyone's distracted, he makes secret decisions that only get revealed at family gatherings. I can't believe I didn't see it before, I admitted. That's because he always targets one person at a time, she said with a small smile. The rest stay quiet because they're scared to be next. But this time he failed, because of Madison. Madison became my biggest strength. While I worked with lawyers, she kept a detailed journal of every talk with Grandma, Grandpa, and Nathan. She wrote down their behavior and even explained everything to Ethan in simple words. "Mom's not taking anyone away," she told her little brother. "She's just making sure everyone plays fair, like when you make game rules with your friend so nobody cheats." Even my brother Brian eventually supported me. He sent me emails and documents Dad had shared with him too. Brian didn't dare go directly against our parents, but the info he gave became our final piece of evidence. The hardest part during all of this was accepting the truth. We might never be the same family again. My whole life I tried to earn their approval, confused their control for care. Now I finally saw the price of their love. It only existed if I obeyed. 3 months after the birthday, we reached the final phase. Jennifer told me Nathan wanted to meet. No lawyers, no parents. "He's under pressure," she explained. "Your father can't make any property moves because of our lawsuits. And Nathan's new fiancée doesn't want a public scandal." I agreed to meet in a public place and took Madison with me. This time Nathan looked less confident. "This is going too far," he said. "Lawyers, lawsuits. It's affecting Ethan. Or your wedding plans?" Madison asked sharply. Nathan shot her an annoyed look. "I'm willing to give up any claim to your parents' property," he offered. "And I'll keep the shared custody the same. But you have to stop accusing me of manipulation." I looked closely at him, the man I once loved, the father of my child, who now was willing to use our son for money. "What made you change your mind?" I asked. He looked away. "Kayla thinks all this makes her and her parents look bad. They don't want to be tied to a messy family. So that was it, it was no longer worth it to him." "I'll think about it," I said. "But everything must be written and legally protect both kids' inheritance rights." As we discussed the details, I realized, for the first time, I was speaking to Nathan as an equal. Not a submissive ex-wife, but someone who wouldn't be controlled anymore. Later, during family therapy, we told Ethan that everything was settled, and he wouldn't have to pick sides. "Will Grandpa still be mad at you?" Ethan asked, showing how deeply he had felt all the tension. "Grandpa and I see things differently," I said gently. "But we all love you." That wasn't the full truth, but it was enough for his age. 6 months after the party, the final meeting with my parents happened. It took place in Jennifer's office. My parents sat across from me. Nathan was there too, but at a distance. Samantha was on my side. Madison sat at the head of the table, calm and prepared, holding a folder full of proof. The lawyer, Jennifer, organized the meeting as a final settlement. This time we didn't just have words, we had real evidence. Letters, documents, voice recordings, and even Brian's testimony. My father started the same way as always. "I object to Samantha being here. This is a family matter." "She is family," I replied calmly. "And her experience is directly connected to everything that's happening now." My mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "I don't understand how it came to this. We only wanted the best for Ethan, the family, and ourselves. By cutting out Madison and taking away my inheritance," I said flatly, "and turning my son against me. We never," my mother began, but Jennifer interrupted her, laying printed transcripts of phone calls on the table. "I think before we continue, you should read the facts." From that point on, the meeting felt more like an interrogation. Jennifer went over everything. Nathan's secret meetings, their attempt to take the house, trying to change custody, belittling me as a mother, and manipulating Ethan. My father's face grew stiffer with every point. Jennifer listed possible consequences: blocked deals, lawsuits for manipulation, and removing him from managing the family trust. "What do you want?" he finally asked in a cold voice. Jennifer handed over the documents. "It's simple," she said. Point 1. The old trust papers stay in effect. Brooke is the only beneficiary of her inheritance. My father started to argue, but the lawyer shut him down. Point 2. Both children are equal heirs to everything in the family funds. Independent professionals will now manage them. My mother gasped. My father looked like he was losing control. Point 3. Grandparents' visits will be strictly scheduled and supervised by professionals until trust is fully restored. This is outrageous, my father shouted. We don't need supervision to see our grandchildren. The recorded conversations say otherwise, Jennifer said calmly. The negotiations went on for hours, but by the evening we reached an agreement. My share and my kids' rights were fully protected, and my parents had strict new limits. As we were leaving, my father tried to have the last word. I hope you're satisfied, Brooke. This war destroyed the family. Madison, who had stayed quiet until then, suddenly spoke. Grandpa, you destroyed this family when you decided Mom and I didn't matter. We just made sure there were consequences for that. Her words hung in the air as we walked out of the room. In the months that followed, a lot changed in our lives. With my inheritance secured, I bought a small but cozy house where both kids had their own space. I quit my side jobs and started working full-time as a gallery manager. For the first time in years, I felt financially stable and free to be creative, something I used to sacrifice for others. Madison blossomed once the stress was gone. She didn't have to protect me anymore. She quickly grew close to Aunt Samantha and her kids, people she hadn't even met before. Eaton slowly adjusted to our new family life, especially now that the fear of custody battles was gone. My relationship with my parents entered a long healing phase. Visits from Grandma and Grandpa followed a strict schedule. They started as short, supervised meetings with a psychologist and were extended only if they respected my boundaries as a mother. Out of everyone, my father struggled the most to accept the new rules. Sometimes he tried to break the rules by giving Ethan gifts or making him promises, but every time he got a firm response and a reminder of the consequences. Eventually, even he had to accept the new boundaries out of fear of losing contact with his grandkids. And then came something unexpected. Nathan changed. Once he was free from my parents' pressure and stopped acting like their replacement son, he started spending more time with the kids. Most importantly, he began to build a real relationship with Madison, someone he had almost ignored before. Exactly 1 year had passed since that anniversary that changed everything. One evening, Madison and I sat on the porch of our new home, watching the sunset and remembering everything we'd gone through. Do you think Grandma and Grandpa will ever really change? Madison asked. Pause. I've thought about that a lot, I said. People rarely change deep down, especially at their age. But, when they have no other choice, they're forced to behave differently. Madison looked thoughtful. I still don't get why they did all that. They have more money than they can ever spend. Why try to take your share? It wasn't about the money, I explained. It was about control. They wanted to punish me for not obeying them, for divorcing Nathan, keeping my job, and raising you on my own. Madison nodded. I'm glad we didn't give up. I couldn't have done it without you, I said, filled with pride and gratitude. You saved me, Madison. You saw what I didn't want to admit. You were brave enough to collect proof. You got us out of that party that night. She looked a little shy at the praise. I was just paying attention, she said. And that's what they never expected, I smiled, squeezing her hand. The most important thing this whole story taught us was to trust our feelings. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong, even if everyone around is pretending that everything's fine. As the evening grew darker, I thought about all the times I ignored the obvious, just to keep the peace to get their approval. But now I realized, the most valuable thing I can leave my children isn't money or family homes. It's courage. The courage to be yourself, to see the truth, and to never let anyone control your life. Looking at Madison, smart, honest, and strong, I knew she already had that legacy. What was the most important thing you learned this year? I asked her. Madison thought for a moment. That family isn't just about blood or names, she said. It's about the people who stand by you and tell you the truth, even when it hurts. As the night settled in, I thought about how often we ignore the warning signs our kids or loved ones see. Sometimes they notice what we don't want to face. And their insight can save not just us but the whole family. I want to thank everyone who listened to my story. It's not easy to admit how long I ignored the truth and let others control me. But if this confession helps even one person avoid my mistakes, then it was worth sharing. Have you ever been saved by someone close to you, from something you didn't want to see? Or maybe you were the one who saw the danger first. Share your stories in the comments. Maybe your experience will help someone who really needs it. And if my story helped you in any way, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Trusting your instincts is always the right thing to do. And remember, sometimes the most important truths come from the people we least expect. And the bravest thing we can ever do is believe in ourselves and protect the ones we love.